Are you inspired yet? In 2021, Aberdeen was lit up with new signs which highlight some of the city's most renowned streets. Or at least, that's what Aberdeen Inspire say they do. I'm not so sure. Looking at the list of streets they nominated for this project, I'm not really sure I'd say they were particularly renowned. In fact, you could say I actually found their list to be a little uninspiring. So, in this video, I'd like to propose some streets which would have been better candidates. Here's my list of streets that are more inspiring than Aberdeen Inspired's. Guest Row was one of the earliest recorded streets in Aberdeen, dating back to 1450. The name is a distortion of Ghost Row, in reference to the nearby kirkyard of St Nicholas. It would have run parallel to Broad Street, from the Nether Kirkgate to the Upper Kirkgate, but all that you'll see of it today is this solitary street sign, regressed a few metres from Broad Street's pavement. Below are the sites of the Illicit Still and Aberdeen's one and only ever Cat Cafe, both sadly missed. Guest Row was home to a number of famous Aberdonians, most prominent among them Sir George Skene, Archibald Simpson and Dr. Andrew Moir. Dr. Moir was at the forefront of the new science of anatomy and is thought to be the founder of Aberdeen University's Anatomy School. This new field came with great controversy at the time amongst stories of body snatching, such as Burke and Hare, and Dr. Moir had to endure the wrath of mob mentality on at least one occasion. George Skene, more commonly known as Provost Skene, is famous today for once owning the oldest townhouse in Aberdeen, which dates back to 1545. He didn't build it though, he just bought it in 1669. It was used to house Jacobite troops at one point, and also used by the Duke of Cumberland on his way to Culloden. Later in its life, in the 1800s, the area had become less attractive, and it was used as a shelter for the homeless. The Guest Row clearances started in 1930, and Provost Skene's house was the only survivor. It began a new life as a museum in 1953, which many Aberdonians remember fondly, in particular the Lower Floor Cafe. The museum was opened by Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, known today as Her Majesty the Queen Mother, but at the time known simply as the Queen. She is credited with helping to save the building, and is quoted as saying that it was a dream that she had cherished when it opened. At number 15 Guest Row, one of Aberdeen's greatest architects was born, Archibald Simpson. Although the building is lost, it is somewhat fitting that the site of his birth is overseen by Marischal College, one of his greatest designs. Less so fitting that the site itself is now occupied by the architecturally uninspiring Marshall Square development. The archway, which now resides on Flour Mill Lane, was originally the entrance to Shepherd's Court on Guest Row. For a while after the area was cleared, it spent some time on Union Terrace Gardens, but was returned to the area, close to its original position, in 1970s. This photo showing the arch in its original location was taken by famed Aberdeen photographer George Washington Wilson. And he built his monastery by the river, where the rushes whistled in the wind and the brown boughs sighed. Of granite he built it, and made it with 2 spires that struck into the sky above the tallest trees. The Shannonray was originally the cathedral precinct, an administration centre for the pre-Reformation church that included the cathedral itself, as well as the Laird of Cluny's house, the Bishop's Palace, the Covenant of the Sisters, Bishop Dunbar's Hospital for men, and manses for all the canons, of which there were 29 at its peak in the 1500s. But only the cathedral itself remains from these times. Well, part of it does anyway. It is thought that in the 6th century, God guided St Machar to go to a place where the river resembled the shape of a shepherd's crook and establish a church there. But it's also possible that there was an existing church from St Ninian's mission at the time. But it wasn't until 1131 when Bishop Nechten moved the bishopric from Mortlach to Aberdeen that it became the cathedral, necessitating the development of the infrastructure around it. Mortlach is one of the oldest Christian sites in Scotland, so it is quite the lineage. A monastery was started there in the 6th century by St Molog, and parts of the Mortlach church are thought to date all the way back to the 8th century. It's also thought to be the first bishopric in Scotland. The debacle that was the construction of the current St Machar Cathedral building began in 1282 with the construction of the choir. The nave was built in the 1400s by Henry de Lichten, and Bishop Elphinston was responsible for the central tower and spire in 1511, but then begun rebuilding the choir. By the time of the Protestant Reformation in 1560, the reconstruction was still ongoing. Now, Protestant churches don't really have any use of a choir area, so the stones used for this incomplete part of the building were gradually whisked away for use elsewhere. The central tower unfortunately fell in the 1650s after Cromwell took stones from the site that turned out to be structurally necessary for the central part of the building. Those stones would go on to build his fortress at the Castlegate. The north and south wings would also go, so that their stones could be used elsewhere. What remains today is merely the nave of the original church. Recently, the Shannonry has come to light as one of the historic homes for Aberdeen Football Club, or rather, one of its predecessors. AFC was born of a merger of 3 clubs in 1903. They were Victoria United, Orion FC and Aberdeen FC, with the latter homed at the Shannonry between 1888 and 1898. A plaque to commemorate this has recently been installed in the area. It joins a similar plaque on Broomhill Road, marking the location of Holborn Cricket Ground, where they first played. Back to the Shannonry, we also see a plaque dedicated to Patrick Manson, who is considered to be the father of tropical medicine. He went to Aberdeen University in 1860 and seems to have been an exceptionally bright student, as he completed his studies by the age of 20, and due to his age, wouldn't be allowed to graduate until a year later. He began his work in Taiwan, where he became known as a brilliant diagnostician, able to improvise treatments adeptly under the circumstances, and as a skilled surgeon. His groundbreaking research resulted in the link between mosquitoes and filariasis, to which one contemporary critic remarked, represented either the work of a genius or, more likely, the emanations of a drunken Scots doctor in far-off China, where, everyone was aware, they drank far too much whiskey. A man after my own heart. He was a mentor to Ronald Ross, who, with the benefit of Manson's research, went on to discover the link between mosquitoes and malaria and win the Nobel Prize. Manson would discover a great number of pathogens, and this collective work has helped form our current approach to managing and preventing these infections. He would also found the first Western hospital and medical school in Hong Kong. Loch Street isn't much to look at nowadays. It was victim to a great clearing of old granite buildings in 1986, but before was home to several famous Aberdeen buildings. The loch itself, that the street is named after, can be found on the earliest maps we have of Aberdeen. It features quite prominently as a large area covering from where St Andrew's Street is now to where Spring Garden is now, labelled the Marish called the Loch. The hill from Gallowgate down to the loch on which the North East College now stands can be seen plainly on James Gordon's famous map. In 1632, it was described as filthy, defilate and corrupted, not only by gutterous Daily running in the burn, but also Listaris in the washing of clothes and abusing of the water and sundry parties and other sorties among cleanies. It's not until Patterson's map from 1746 that we clearly see the loch, and George Taylor's 1773 map seems to be the first to plot it precisely. Those marshlands seem to have remained undeveloped by that time and garnered the alternative moniker of the Lochlands. By 1810, George Street was laid out and the Lochlands were being redeveloped. Yet the loch itself remained. By 1840, however, it disappears from maps altogether, but its removal would give way to a very interesting part of Aberdeen. The arch, which today lies in Loch Street, was originally between 53 and 57 Gallowgate. It marked the entrance to a close which would take you to St Paul's Episcopal Church. St Paul's sat back from Loch Street on the east side, around where the entrance to Loch Street car park is now. It was visited by Samuel Johnston when he visited Aberdeen, and was also Lord Byron's boyhood church. The headquarters of the Northern Cooperative Society were also located on Loch Street. What started off as a single shop at 51 Gallowgate would expand all the way to Loch Street in a large granite building incorporating an arcade that ran between both streets. It was just next door to St Paul's Church. All that remains of it is this granite plaque which used to sit above the arcade, preserved outside the Bon Accord Centre car park, somewhat south a wee bit of its original location. The cooperative was formed in 1861, following a meeting in the United Free Church on Belmont Street. The movement established many shops and supermarkets throughout the city and shire, and its Loch Street headquarters were eventually replaced with Norco House on George Street, which opened in 1970. Norco House would be vacated by the Society in 1977, and its headquarters moved to where Sainsbury's is now in Birlinn. George Lewis would take over the George Street building in 1989. The Northern Cooperative Society would cease to exist in 1993 after selling its Birlinn store to the Scottish Co-op and its dairy nearby, due to financial difficulties. Where Loch Street would have intersected George Street, where the Bon Accord Centre is now, stood the Buttery, a famous Aberdeen cafe. I wonder if they sold many rowies. Bruce Miller's piano factory also stood on Loch Street, and I wonder if anyone remembers the Lochside Bar.
Scratch the fiddles, blaw the pipes, blaw the pipes, blaw the pipes. Scratch the fiddles, blaw the pipes at 6 o'clock in the morning. He's rowed up Union Street like tow. He's skelpit the lion o'er the pow. He's cawed the queen a feel-hall cow at 6 o'clock in the morning.
In Aberdeen, all roads lead to Union Street. And not just figuratively, the city was literally designed that way. The construction of Union Bridge and laying out of Union Street turned the city from a cramped medieval town into a bustling Victorian city. It involved building vaults to raise the street to a consistent elevation and bridging the Den-Burn Valley so the city could expand to the west. But the town planning didn't end there. Quarries such as Rubislaw would be kept very busy over the next century. King Street, Market Street, George Street, Union Place, Holborn Street and Afford Place grew from Union Street like veins, forming the backbone of the city's infrastructure and connecting it to the historic highways leading to Aberdeenshire's towns. King Street was laid out about the same time as Union Street and ultimately leads to the great fishing ports of the north. George Street, which could be accessed from Union Street through St Nicholas Street, before the construction of the Bon Accord and St Nicholas centres, was the main route out to the agricultural centres of Old Meldrum and Inverurie, not to mention quarries such as Sclatty, Dancing Cairns and Kemnay. Union Place, which now makes up the southernmost end of Union Street, led to the turnpike of Alford Place and South Road. Alford Place would take you to, you guessed it, Afford, home of the Aberdeen Angus breed, as well as Tarland. South Road, later called Wellington Place, then Holborn Street, would take you either to the Dee Bridge, then on to south to Greater Cities, or via Cooperstown Place, now called Great Western Road, and on to Deeside. Then there is Market Street, connecting all of the above via Union Street with Aberdeen's Great Harbour, with trade links to the rest of the world, including steamer links to London and clippers to the Indies and as far as Australia. Union Street is a topic worthy of its own video. I'm not going to go into any more detail here as this has gone on long enough, but there are lots of stories. Albert and Victoria's first visit to Balmoral, how Trinity Hall inspired their improvements to the castle, John Smith's columnade at the kirkyard, Ian Wood's scheme to pave over Union Terrace Gardens, Thomas Fletcher's construction of the world's largest single-span granite bridge, and saving the project from incompetent architects. Aberdeen's first townhouse, 2 statues of Queen Victoria, multiple cinemas, department stores, banks, Shargar Shoppies, Crimmin Muggett's townhouse, and the business that was responsible for Aberdeen's typhoid outbreak. All stories for another day. But my point is, Union Street has to be Aberdeen's most interesting and historically significant street. Some might even say it's inspiring. We're halfway through the list now, so I'm going to close the video here. But tune in next week to see what my final 4 streets are going to be.
Scratch the fiddles, blaw the pipes at 6 o'clock in the morning.
6 o'clock in the morning, and for what?